How everything I thought I knew about bass fishing completely failed me in Tennessee. That's what I'm going to tell you about, as I took a recent trip up there to do some motorcycle content. Now, if you guys are not familiar with me, that's totally fine. I actually run a gun channel and a motorcycle channel. And it's been a while since I've ridden my motorcycle up there, but I had something else in mind too. I wanted to catch my first Tennessee bass. We just launched SwampGhost, and so the idea of taking baits that I know work down here to a completely different state, I thought, yeah, this ain't gonna be too bad. But it was a lot harder than I expected. This lake threw me a lot of curveballs. So I'll tell you about it, and of course I'll show you some of the footage and the success part of the story as well. If you like these types of videos, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, drop me a like, and let me know maybe some of the toughest lakes that you've ever fished and ones that humbled you along the way. Whatever your opinion is, drop it down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now let me tell you a little backstory. I've bass fished for a really long time, but I've gotten really heavily back into it over the past couple of years. And I've learned more about bass fishing probably since starting SwampGhost than in my entire, 30 years before this. So I'm taking all this knowledge that I thought I knew about bass fishing to a completely different lake. This is actually Lake Norris up in Tennessee, or Norris Lake, I think is what they call it up there. It's a man-made lake. It's not exactly like wide, but it's a freaking long lake. So anyways, my buddy owns a pontoon boat. He's not a fisherman. He's more about relaxing out on the water than he is fishing. But whatever, I'm on a boat, so this gives me an opportunity to throw my baits. The very first morning I go out there, I'm like, all right, throwing next to logs and laydowns. And the water is kind of low, but one thing I noticed instantly is the water depth is out of my comfort zone. I'm used to fishing 5 to 10 foot of water, not 30 and 40 foot of water. I mean, it seemed like the banks on this lake specifically go from like 0 to 15 instantly, and then down to 30 instantly. Where I'm used to fishing around stumps and everything else, this lake is wide open. So the first morning, kind of tough, no bites. I'm like, okay, let me evaluate what went wrong here. I go back out in the afternoon, nothing. Okay, obviously I'm fishing too shallow, I think, at this point. So I head over to Walmart and I just buy some deep diving crankbaits. I'm like, okay, let's try this, because it's not something I typically run, like I said. So the next day, me and Mrs. Headshot go out. We're doing our thing and we're, throwing. And I finally get a bite on one of the crankbaits. And now at this point, I'm like, okay, I got the flukes. I know they're a little bit deeper. I got to catch one on one of my colors, one of our colors. I just released Brim Fire. I got to catch a fish on this thing. But see, here's the thing. Before that bite, I'm thinking to myself, the water temp is 78 degrees. There was a little bit of wind. This should be like prime time fishing. It's not so much of a question as, are they eating? It's what depth are they eating at? So what I'm looking for is those transitions where you have the laydowns, the cover, into a little bit deeper water. Where are they suspended at in the water column? And before I got that bite on that crankbait, I really had no idea. Even when I was telling Mrs. Headshot to fish, I said, hey, because she loves fishing the 3.8 inch minnows. She's caught some good fish on those things. So I said, hey, just let it sink down and kind of slowly reel in and let it stop, let it drop, keep doing that. But another thing with this lake at this time is the water was actually low compared to what it normally is. Like, I'm looking at the bank and I'm seeing all these different coverage points and laydowns and stumps and freaking beaver dams and, it just all of this beautiful coverage, but it's out of the water. Now, there's a good part of it still in the water, but still, I'm looking at all this coverage that should be there that is not there right now. But then I started to see the change in the weather, and this started to make me feel more at home and a little bit more confident. I knew the rain was coming. Clouds started rolling in. And so after that crankbait hit, I said, all right, let me tie on one of mine. And finally, I caught my first Tennessee bass. There he is. There he is. Come on, baby. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Little largemouth, baby.
Alright, hold on. Let me get a photo.
You are too small, but you're making me happy. Hold on, buddy. Hold on. Let me get him in my hands.
Let me get the mountain behind you.
Now, was this bass the biggest thing ever? No. Nope. But he was the biggest bass I've ever caught in Tennessee because he's the first bass I've ever caught in Tennessee. And it just proved a couple of things to me. I could at least adapt and get one fish to bite my freaking hook. I at least figured out one part of that lake. I also proved that largemouth are some of the best fish to catch because the fluke was almost bigger than this guy. They're aggressive, they're moody, they are territorial, and I love that. I also proved that Brim Fire is a winner no matter what state I'm in. But here's the other thing that it proved, man. Bass fishing can be tough, right? Sometimes we're set up with conditions that make it really easy and favorable. Other times, we got to work for these fish. All of you that have bass fished know exactly what I'm talking about. But one fish can make all of the difference. Now, unfortunately, we had to go back in where my buddy stores the boat. It's up on a hill. It's a freaking clay-packed hill, and he can't get the truck up there to drop it off once the rain starts. And if you know anything about the mountains and rain, it can be intense, and it actually was intense. But that one fish showed me that at least I can adapt, and that's been one of my biggest issues throughout my 20-something years of fishing, is adapting. I would throw the same bait over and over and over and over, expecting a different result. I wouldn't move deep, I wouldn't throw a different bait, I wouldn't do this. But now I'm learning that, hey, sometimes having a little bit more knowledge about the wind direction, the water levels, the temperature, the laydowns, the deeper water, does that make me like a bass master now? No. Does that make me more versatile in knowing next time I know what to look for when I get into deeper, clearer water and trying to find the fish? Yeah, it's something I can add to my arsenal for sure. I don't know. That's just my experience, and I will say that this one Tennessee fishing experience definitely changed my strategy when it comes to deeper water. Let me know about some of your experiences with lakes in particular, or just a different fishing experience, man. How do those things go for you? Let me know down below. If you like what we do, consider subscribing, and make sure you check out SwampGhost online to check out some of the baits that we have to offer for y'all right there on the website. I'll leave the link down below. Big thanks to you. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.